Okay. And we should be live now.
Let the show begin. I have to bring it up on another computer, see if it's working.
Yeah. Only I maybe have to put the upload speed a bit higher. Is the stream lagging or is it smooth with you?
I don't know. I'm gonna get it good. Yeah. Oh, I think I see us. It's kind of it's choppy. It's choppy on my end, but it's there.
It's a solid 2 FPS. Let's put the stream a bit down.
Can you adjust the FPS?
Yes, I'm checking it now.
Yeah. Let's see, we got hellos from Germany, Texas, Buenos Aires. We are worldwide. That's one of the things that's always been pretty wild with the project is how far it reaches.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, we have people all over the place that love to use it. I think you know, just the barrier to entry as far as cost really makes a difference for a lot of folks who can't go into the you know, I mean the commercial equipment starts at like $600 or so if you can even get it now, and you know, and then to even use it in a lot of places you need subscriptions. So that's really helped us gain a global following.
Yeah, when it goes back to the old Delta 5, how it was just a simple open source project, and you know, anyone could kind of grab it and start messing with it. And you know, I think to a large extent it's still like that.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we did. If it wasn't for Delta 5, then we wouldn't be here.
Now the stream's looking good.
Yeah, I'm just playing a bit with the settings until it's going smoothly, but I think it's good now.
Ah, come on, tweak it some more. No. All right, well.
Okay, perfect.
Time for introductions.
Time for introductions. Michael, the honor is to you.
Yeah. Who's
we all set?
running this ship? Yeah, we're live. We're good.
All right, well, hello everybody. I'm glad to set this up. I really want to, I'm really happy with what we've achieved in the latest version of RotorHazard version 4, and it's allowed ourselves and the community to come together and start building what was, just a timer into a real tool that's helpful for the entire community. So Eric has been with me on this since the beginning. We pretty much started this project together. He's been focusing more on the hardware side, and I've been doing more of the software. And I've been leading a lot of the user experience and doing a lot of the connections with the community and that sort of thing. So I'm happy to to be able to talk to everybody today and answer some questions and really show people what they can expect out of the new version.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was how this all kind of started is Michael and I were both using the Delta 5 timers and messing around with them, and we wanted to kind of turn it into something that looks more like what RotorHazard looks now. And Michael was definitely wanted to do things with the front end, that has really been realized. It's been really awesome. And there were things with just functionality, kind of back end stuff that I was into, and then we got into the hardware and updating the hardware. And so yeah, I think it's gone really well. It's you seem to have a really good kind of Intuit user base. And yeah, we keep chugging along and keep kind of adding things to it. And yeah, I think it's a real example of what open source can be, and how you can just get a lot of functionality in there, and still have it be totally accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of where we started from, is just build off of someone else's open source project to begin with, and and see what we could do with it to get to that next step. And I love the Delta 5 system, for what they brought to the community, and they've now sort of passed the torch in that they've retired that project, and we've carried it forward. So I really feel like RotorHazard is an extension of that, open source timing that began before us.
One of the things that we've always been conscious of is backward compatibility, and so you can still run RotorHazard on the old Delta 5 hardware. And we've that's always been kind of a thing. We're always trying not to break things if it's working right now. And while it's better to use the newer hardware, it runs better. It's faster. You can still do it with the old stuff if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no, I know that was one of the questions that we got, is, whether or not someone should upgrade hardware that they have. And, there's no accuracy difference in running a Delta 5 system right now. We haven't used the, the additional capabilities for anything that has to do specifically with the timing aspects. So yes, you'll be able to build something that is a little bit less expensive. It's easier to put together.
The newer hardware is, yeah.
That's right. Yes, the newer ones are. But if you're on that older system, you can still just keep using that going forward. If it's still working, just go ahead and maintain what you have. We don't want to add cost where we don't have to.
And one of the really exciting things are the contributions we're getting from other people now. There's the whole nuclear hazard in these new layouts of the boards, and now you can get those boards, I don't know, maybe 80% assembled now from him, something like that. And so that's really cool. And then on the software side, we got the whole world of plugins growing now.
Yeah, the nuclear hazard is a really interesting development that someone brought to the table. Spencer is the guy who's doing that, and having it not just so that you can get it pre-populated, but that he will sell you one that's already put together. Both of those things were really great developments for the system, because one of the difficulties with the system was just getting all of the various parts together in one place. Ordering a bunch of small quantities from a bunch of different sellers just really adds up your shipping costs and your complications of how I'm going to find things and all of that. And that's really goes out of the way when you put together or get a pre-populated board. And then, yeah, on the software side as well, the plugins have just really been fantastic. There are so many developers now who are contributing different things to the system that just go so much quicker, you know, in what we can do and what the system can do, because the community is coming together around those.
Yeah, totally. I started when I started with Dutch drone racing. It was like 2 years ago now, I think, maybe 2.5. And I started with the option to go with the existing software that was already out of the box, the Immersion RC lap timer or the RotorHazard system. That was the option I had. I had a good opportunity that I could get the expensive timer basically for free. But at that time we made the choice to go with RotorHazard because of the open source code, the ability for customization, and that made the choice for us so much easier, because we like to modify things, we like to personalize things, do things a bit differently, and the system used that's mostly used, I think still on this day, is the Immersion RC lap timer with lifetime. But we just didn't like it. We didn't like the interface. We didn't like the software. Only running on Windows. We mostly run on Mac. So for us, it wasn't really a choice to make. It was very straightforward. We had to invest in the RotorHazard system. And that was 2 years ago, when it was still a lot less mature with the new version out, with all the plugin features. Yeah, the possibilities are expanding every week. So that's very interesting. And also, I think for other race organizations who like to have a proper branding, a proper experience for the audience, but also for the pilots, yeah, the RotorHazard system is just so much more logic to invest in that. Not only that it's way cheaper, it's also much more versatile.
Yeah, I know one of the things is you can really pair it up well with OBS Studio, of course.
Yeah.
Another great open source project. And I don't know, maybe Michael, you want to speak to the other kind of pairings that's happening with RotorHazard?
Sure. So one of the things that we had to do with RotorHazard 4 was change the, you know, one of the libraries is just aging, something that was integral to how Delta 5 communicated with some of these other systems. Right. So we upgraded the socket library because what was in there was just several versions back, and it had known vulnerabilities and all of that. And that did, you know, break down some of our ability to emulate the Delta 5. So we started talking to, you know, some of the other systems that wanted to connect with us, and the developer of FPV Trackside was really interested in doing that coordination. So really quickly, we put together a connector for RotorHazard 4. So as soon as we went, you know, live with the release, there was already a Trackside connector in place. And it's built in a way that allows us to expand it as we go forward. So right now, it pretty much does, you know, what a connection to Delta 5 would do. It'll start and stop races, and you know, and send lap times over to the system. But it's in a structure that's going to allow Trackside to tell us like who is flying and, you know, in what heats they're in and that sort of thing, so that we can start to use some of RotorHazard's advanced, you know, self-calibration type features and let Trackside get the benefit of that. So I'm, you know, really excited that that connection exists, and we'll be able to build on that. Right now, Trackside is in the middle of a fairly major architecture change, so they aren't, you know, diving back into that just yet. But I'm confident this is something we're going to go back to, and, you know, really just improve the quality of that connection. And at the present, I haven't heard of any development from LiveTime to make a similar connection. So users on that will have to stay on RotorHazard V4, which can do that Delta 5 emulation. But as soon as they want to jump in and start, migrating to 4, we'll be working on our side to make that happen as well. But the plugin system does a lot more than just connect to other timing systems, which is one of the things I've been really excited about seeing. And some of the other services that have been put together are connections with, like, MultiGP, for example, is one of the largest organizing bodies for races globally at the moment. And there is a toolkit plugin available now by Grubby is the handle for that one that's being developed, and this is coming along really well. I've used it for my own races already, where we import an event from MultiGP by using the API key they provide, and I can upload my results and my rankings back to the MultiGP page afterwards. So this is an exciting development, because we may be able to to move that into not just regular races, but also global qualifiers going forward. And there's an active discussion with the MultiGP folks about getting that done. I can't promise anything right now, but I will say that the discussion is going well, and we are making significant progress to making that happen. And everything on both sides right now is very optimistic. So I'm really happy to see that moving ahead.
And there's also been a lot happening with like the OSD type integrations.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just taking a look at the page on the wiki of available plugins gives you a nice idea what other people are doing. But there's, race management services, as I was saying, is MultiGP, but also VE Barracuda is developing a cloud link that connects with like bracket displays. He's recently posted about that, and you can see his pilots are really getting a lot of use out of that. There's FPV Scores, which I'll leave to Jesse. I mean, this is a pretty amazing connection that I think he'll get into a little bit later on. But some of the other technical connections, as Eric just said, are like the ELRS backpack. Grubby's been developing a connection to that, and a separate developer has been working on an ELRS connection in order to allow RotorHazard to send times to ELRS, which can communicate with HD0. The HD0 goggles have the backpack integrated in them, and so we can show race times from RotorHazard on an HD0 OSD display. We're still working on the reliability of that system. The last time I tried it, it worked great on the bench, but not at an event. I know it's come several versions forward since then, so I'm hoping that is the next one I go to, it'll be great. But just the fact that we've seen it working means that it's coming along, and that's pretty excellent. That connection has already been put together too. Just a little bit lower here in the OSD and VRX control section. In the TBS Fusion, the TBS developers worked with me to get that plugin put together. So if you have a Fusion receiver on analog, that works. I've been to a couple of races with the Fusion, had my lap times and my split times to the next pilots on screen as I fly, and that's really interesting to see that information as you're flying along and know what that difference is. Sometimes you don't even see the person in front of you, and you don't know if if they're crashed out or how far you have ahead of them, or if you're making time or losing time. And just having that split to look at from one to the next, even if you're ignoring your own lap time, it's just really helpful information as you're flying a race.
Yeah, what's also interesting to say about this point is that this doesn't keep the system only used by event organizers, but you also see just individuals or a group of a few pilots who train on the field. They put up the lap timer, they do the ELRS or the Fusion link, so they have their own lap times in their goggles, and the new option to just start the race by your switch on your remote controller. I think it's functioning now, but maybe a bit buggy yet. I'm not sure about it. I didn't test it myself.
Yeah, I believe that functionality exists now.
Yeah.
I would still consider it, I think we're still consider it beta at this point, but I'm planning on putting it on, my timer for the next race that I have in just a couple of weeks.
Well, that makes it so interesting is together with the 1 or 2 node design by RotorHazard, the simple one. It makes it really affordable and easy to use to have your own lap timer if you're just out in the field practicing for yourself or together with a buddy. To do the lap timing where you're in the past you weren't able to do so, or it required a lot of hassle.
Yeah, it makes a big difference having a timer. It's one thing to just kind of go out there and fly around, and even if you have a course and whatnot, but it gets boring like pretty quick if that's all you're doing. But even just like if you have 2 or 3 or 4 guys, if you have a lap timer, it just suddenly gets a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. And like the way our group operates, like we're just really small. I mean, it's really just a few of us guys, and we don't, we're very casual about it. We're not. It's a very different type of scene, like just here locally. And so we're really just going race to race and having fun and kind of trying to come up with interesting things in the courses. And if the timer wasn't there, it wouldn't keep up. Like we wouldn't keep doing it. But with the timer there, it's fun. And I've worked on different ways to do with. I've been working with things with split timers and different things with that. And it's a lot more just kind of casual and just fooling around compared to what a lot or most of the guys doing this stuff are doing with multi-GP and the whole thing. But it's still a lot of fun.
And I think that's one area where RotorHazard 4 with the plugins is really going to let smaller groups be able to have this kind of fun with their individual things and try new things and and go out of their way to just do something interesting and different, because with plugins, we don't have to overload the system itself with features that are just for tiny groups that are trying something interesting and may not even enjoy yet, or anything like that. Like you can build a plugin to just rank your pilots and your race the way that you like to do it, and and add it to your own timer, and then if it's working, then distribute that and other people can play with that too. It's not something that you have to submit a feature request and wait for developers to put it in and test it 20 different ways to make sure it works with all of the other systems and all of the other things that people may or may not want to try to do with it. Those individual little projects, they're so much easier now to just throw together and throw in the timer and play with.
And we can keep an eye on our YouTube chat here. Ricky in the chat said that ELR's backpack with HD0 is so cool. I wish Walksnail had that feature. And guys, if you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the YouTube chat. We'll try and keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I'll say the reason that we have integrations for OSD with Clearview and with TBS Fusion and with ELRS is because those are the systems that have worked with us to be able to do it. Like the only way to get something on an OSD, exactly. The only way to get something on an OSD is for that system to have an API that allows us to talk to it. So the Clearview folks had a developer that worked with us to get that in there. The Fusion folks had a developer worked with us to get it in there, and of course ELRS. The ELRS being open source helped part of it, but there was support from the HD0 side to get that OSD writing from ELRS to happen. So if you want it from another system, that's awesome. We would be happy to do it on our end as well, but it does take that manufacturer support to make that happen.
So anything in particular we want to cover? Do we want to get into version
Maybe,
4?
yeah, maybe you just Michael, maybe you want to do a quick race setup. I have 3 questions from the forum already here. We can go to that first, or we can maybe first show simple event setup in 4.0.
Sure, yeah, I can do a simple event setup. In just a second to here.
Let me see if I have to share screen once more. One moment. Oh, it's active now. Yeah, and then.
All right, everyone see that okay? Okay. So this is what you'll end up the first time you open it up. It's pretty straightforward. I have logged in, so I guess that's one extra step. Usually when I'm setting up a race, I'm going to start by going to the settings. And I'm going to pop open the frequency setup and see if if everything's where I want it to be. The default, so this isn't running on actual hardware, so I don't have actual sensors pulling data. But we'll run through how I would put my event together. If I'm going to do an indoor event, I'm only going to run 4 seats per race, and this 1367 is a great.
I think his internet crapped out.
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay. Everything else on the settings page is generally all done. I'll set it up once when I put my timer together, but I don't need that anymore from race to race. So I can go to the format tab and just build my individual event details. So to start, if you want, this is optional. You can put in your event name. You can put a description. This stuff shows up on the event page if someone else visits the page later. The event name will also show up on the results page. So you can see there. If you're planning on using, a certain number of consecutive laps, so if you're going to rank based on 3 consecutive laps, then that's what the default is. But if you are, you want to rank on 2 or 4 or 5, you can change the consecutive lap space. It doesn't calculate all of the different possibilities because that's a lot of calculation to get this. This is easily one of the most intensive results.
You're kind of dropping in and out a little bit, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have any more bandwidth to play with, but maybe if I pause my video here, is that a thing I can do?
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let's try that and see if that gets us any further along. Okay, so I've set my event details. I'm going to move along to adding my pilots. So go ahead and add, as many as the pilots that you have flying that day. If you are using, the multi-GP or the FPV Scores plugins, you should be able to import in various ways and get these in. You can also pull pilots in if you have a previous database or an import file and fill that out. This database was blank, but usually I'll continue on from the previous one, so I don't have to redo a lot of this. For today, I'll just leave those as default, and we don't need to do too much of that. Then I'm going to start setting up my classes. Now, you can run RotorHazard without classes and just add your heats directly to an unclassified section. But every time you create a class, it's like putting a group of pilots together for or a group of races together for any reason that you want to connect them the same way. So I'll always start my event by just creating a practice class. And when I put this together, I'll add my pilots to my race heats in the practice class. And by doing that, I can start collecting race data as the pilots are practicing, and also easily have that separated in my results set later on. When people are looking at results, they're like, oh, this is practice. I don't need to worry about whether or not that affects the race results. So after that, you'll run your practices, you'll see whether or not things work out, and you may start running your qualifiers. So I'll just duplicate my practice heat if everything here is set up the way I want it to be. And then I've already got my heat set up for the next qualifier set. So I can set that to qualifier. And if you set the race format in your class, then what this is going to do is that every race that occurs in this class is going to be restricted to only this one race format. And that's helpful, so you don't have races that are run on on different formats accidentally in various places. So practice, I won't worry too much about setting a specific format in here, but I will lock down my qualifiers and my finals with a specific format. The ranking will allow my pilots to be sorted in a different way, which is useful both for displaying on the results page and also for seeding future heats, which is great. For my qualifier, I'll probably just leave it as my race format a lot of time, because we run, a lot of times in my indoor events, we'll run a total number of laps that you pull in qualifiers. But sometimes we like to say, okay, we're gonna run 5 rounds today and we're gonna drop the lowest one. So if I wanted to do that, I can set this to best rounds and set this to 4. And now it will take the best 4 rounds, which is equivalent to dropping the lowest one out of 5. You can set the number of rounds here if you know what that's going to be ahead of time. If I know for sure that I'm going to run 5 rounds of qualifiers, then I can put that in here. If I don't know what that is, you can just leave it at 0, and RotorHazard will continue just adding new rounds as you go along. Mostly what this does is once you've reached that number, it will automatically send you to the next class in the list once you've completed this. So you can set this up to get your system to basically automatically run itself if you tell it that you want it to schedule the race once the last one has finished. And this will run the number of rounds and move on. If you don't know what that is, though, just leaving it at 0, just as it's going to keep running new rounds until you're finished with whatever you decide you want that to be. And then the advanced heat is just, if I set that to always, and once I finish running one heat, it'll run the next one, and if the rounds aren't exhausted when I finish the next one, it'll go back to the first, and so forth. But some places like to run the same heat multiple times before moving on to the next heat multiple times. So you can set it that way to run your first heat 5 times, and then your second heat 5 times, and then after those are finished, it will then move on to the next class. So just setting that, leaving that at always is what most groups would want. Once we've finished running our qualifier, our group likes to run a ladder for finals. So we may have 8 or 9 pilots that we have in a ranking, and then we decide we want to put a ladder together. So to have, say, we'll maybe fly 3 at a time, and then the lowest one will drop out and the next 2 will advance. So what we'll do after we've finished with our qualifiers is we will generate that next ladder heat. So I'll go down here to generators, set it to a ladder. I want to take the results from my qualifier, and I'm going to create a new class. And when I do this, I can say, let's run 3 pilots. I'm going to have 2 of them advance and just 1 of them automatically seed from the next one. So if in this case, we would have, we would be dropping the lowest. Let me see what I'm doing here. Okay, the number of pilots in the class is, if I don't want to run all of the pilots and and seed everybody in, I can reduce that. And if I'm going to run, say, a bracket that doesn't take the top 16, but goes, say, the next 16 after that, I can start seeding from a lower number. So with this one, I'm going to start putting together a final, and I will generate that, and you'll see in this case the number of pilots I have, which is only 4. That would only give me 2 heats for my final grouping, because our B final, the qualifier class is going to seed 2, 3, and 4, and then the top 2 will advance here into the A. So B final of rank number 1 and B final of rank number 2 will join from the qualifier classes rank number 1. And these won't populate until I actually seed them. So right now, since I haven't actually generated any results, there's nothing to pull from. But if I had a class in there ready to go, I could push this and it would look at the results, which are pulled from the ranking, and then generate, which you see the pilots in here that should be in here when it's ready to go. So I can have my ladder class all ready and assembled before I finish running my qualifier heats, which is great. And I'll close this down now, and I'll pull in a database of existing data, and we can take a look at that. But if you want to give me a moment to do that while you switch to something else, then I'll have that ready. We can keep going.
There we go. Unmuted myself. All right.
Oh.
Let me show the.
Marcus, your video coming back? Ah, there he is.
There
Yeah.
he is.
Yes, the video is back here. Did we lose Eric?
No, I should still
No,
be
he's
here.
here. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I should be here.
So I'm going to pull in a database file, and then we'll be able to look at some results and seed.
Do you need a minute, or are you ready?
Something new. Let's do this one. I've got my server on a separate system here, so it's pulling that in right now.
That is one thing with the RotorHazard server is it's just basic. It's all Python, and so any hardware that can run Python effectively can run the server.
Bring that back up. Okay, so I've loaded a race that we ran previously, and you can see my pilots. We had practice and mains on this particular day. So let's say I wanted to pull in my spec mains in order to seed a final. So on this particular day, we had 4 of us flying, and after our 5 rounds, we have our number of laps that we pulled in here. So I would go back over here to format, and I'm going to build that ladder based on my spec main and generate that. In this case, let's do a bunch of head-to-heads. So I'll do one of each of those and pull final. So because I only have 4 pilots, let's have it generate a few different heats. So down here at the bottom is my ladder, and my C is seeding in spec main 3 and 4, and my B is pulling the winner of the C, and then spec main number 2, and then my A is pulling the winner of B and spec main number 1. So if I pull from here, what it's going to do is look at the results of the spec main and pull rank 3 and rank 4 and who those pilots were, and see what channels they're on and whether or not it can see them in here. And it does this as intelligently as it can, right? If someone is the only one on that channel, then it's going to put them in there. If 2 people are sharing a channel, it will actually take a look at a number of other features and see what was going on and who might be the best person to put on it. So instead of just dropping channels in as soon as you finish the previous race, It will wait until you're ready to fly it, and you want to actually push the button to see that, so that it can make the best choices for who goes where. And it will use previous race data for who flew on what channels, so that it can reassign somebody to something they've been on before if possible. And that means that you as a race director don't have to recalibrate the system for somebody who's going onto a new channel for the first time.
That will save a lot of pain.
Exactly. And as long as you have pilots already who, as long as your data is ready and you're not relying on a previous, you can seed these ahead of time. But you'll see right now, if I try and seed the B, I have my B relying on rank #1 from the C final, which doesn't exist. So it's going to give me a warning that, I don't have a ranking to pull from this race. I would have to run that race first for this to show up. So yeah, that's the general overview. I mean, not much has changed in actually running it. Once you have everything together, you just come over here. It'll pull in everything from how you have things set up. You can get that started, and I can just simulate a few laps here on my basic race. I can switch to using the hotkeys for this instead of actually clicking on buttons. It'll tell me, it'll highlight if the laps are a little short. I can change that if I need to. And let's go ahead and save that. We'll say if I won that race. And it knows that the next race is the B. So as soon as I've saved the first one, it's going to say, okay, let's see if I can seed the B. And here's the rank from the C. They're on R7. We pull in rank from the B. So we've automatically pulled in the the ranking from the C, the race that we just finished. Yes.
You have to rewind for 30 seconds because we lost you.
Okay. So I just ran, I ran a simulated race and saved the results. And as soon as I saved the results, this is what I was presented with next. So because the race automatically advanced from the C final to the B, it's asking me now to confirm, who are the racers in this next one, because we know that, Gecko won. It's asking if we want to seed him into this heat, and then we're going to pull rank 2 from the spec main, because that's how this is put together. So I can confirm that right now. Or, as a race director, I might say, actually, no, I need to, to marshal those race results. I can, cancel this out and go modify it and come and do this manually afterwards. But, if everything's running smoothly, you can often just run the race, look at the results, save them when they're right, and move, advance one to the next automatically as you go ahead, which is just, this has saved us so much time in running formats like this. Yeah. Where we need to know, who's going next and what channels do we need to switch to and all of that. It's been awesome to be able to just run some of these advanced formats and just have it really easily move on.
Yeah, and it saves downtime for the whole event for every pilot, of course, because
yeah, absolutely.
In the past, the race directors had to go figure it out, make new schedules, make new heats of new classes. And now it's just, you prepare it before the event, and after running the qualifiers or whatever, you just press generate and it should be fine.
Yep, exactly. We've really improved our throughput in our races, and everyone's enjoyment of the races, how they understand who's coming up next or how am I doing, and all of that stuff has really been elevated in the last few months with the release of 4 and these features that we've been putting together, and other people have been adding on as well. I mean, your system, FPV Scores, has been really great for being able to send those times to an outside system so they can be looked at. The system that the Barracuda has been doing is the exact same thing. I think he just posted, a bunch of 30 pilot race standing around looking at his display of how those brackets are going together, which is just awesome. that they could just be run so smoothly from one set to the next.
Yeah, I think so too. The whole experience for the pilots and as well for the audience just got lifted so much with these options. Yeah, you can hear it from the pilots themselves. That they really like the enhancements.
Yeah, definitely been hearing that. It's awesome to watch too, and not just that, you know, the community likes what we've been doing, but that they've been able to add so much to the system already. Just, you know, even in the couple of weeks since the release of 4.0, just the number of available plugins has gone, you know, from basically the 2 or 3 that I was releasing, you know, along with it to we're close to 20 now that are either already released or well into development.
In the work, yeah, that's crazy. And then it features all parts of the system. It's not only race management. It's not only cloud systems, but it's overlays for the stream, maybe pilot check-in during an event. You can name some others. The network calls like the UDP plugin, optimization of lights, audio, whatever, LED systems.
Yeah, definitely. And the developers that have put in their time into this is just, you know, it's fantastic to see that you know, people can put features in it that I've wanted to add and just haven't been on top of the priority list. And that now they already exist and I didn't have to build them yet.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Do we have questions we want to answer?
Maybe you can. You didn't really talk a lot about the MGP qualifier, global qualifier part. Maybe that's interesting for a lot of the American organizations.
I think I've covered what I'm able to at the moment, because you know, we definitely the integration with MultiGP for regular races is well underway. You know, you can pull pilot data in from your race right now with the toolkit plugin. You can push your results and your rankings up from RotorHazard with that toolkit plugin, and that works. I've done that myself. The global qualifier is still in development, and it's, you know, we're doing everything that we can to make that happen. We got a list of things that the system needs to be able to do in order to you know, to meet that criteria. That work on that list is well underway. We've solved several of them already, and we have you know, plans in place for everything that's left. It's ultimately not going to be up to us whether or not MultiGP decides to make that final integration, but I can tell you that, you know, the technical barriers for it are, you know, absolutely hurdles that either are or are about to be overcome.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. ET, Eric, you had something to say about your work on secondary and split timers that may be interesting too, before we handle the Q&A.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to show, let's see, let me share this out here on the Facebook.
Are you going to share your screen? Because then I have to put it up.
Does that show? Oh no, you have to put it up, right? Okay.
Yeah. But that's...
So if I'm sharing it, can you put it up now? Or does it show already?
I think it should come any moment now. Yeah, it's on now. Yeah.
So this is on the RotorHazard Facebook. This was a post by Vicky out in Malaysia, and he's and this was pretty cool. He had looks like he had a big event up there. What's he say? And yeah, there's his group shot. with so that looks pretty cool. Looks like they had fun with it. Do you know, do you know which screen this is referring to?
This is the CloudLink system.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a video. I saw something fly through there. But no, that's way cool what they were doing. Did we want to, let's see, actually just a little while ago here on the Facebook from Andrew, he was asking about adaptive calibration. This is maybe one Michael can answer. The documentation says this mode improves calibration as more races are saved if the race director confirms the incoming lap counts. Where do I confirm incoming laps? Do I need to start new heats for adaptive calibration to work, or will it work starting new rounds within the same heat? Would you know the answer to that one, Michael? Can Michael hear me? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me, Michael?
I think Michael doesn't want to hear you.
Maybe he's a...
I can't hear you, ET, right now.
Oh, yeah.
Can or cannot? I guess cannot. Can he hear you? Testing.
Michael, are you here?
I'm here. I can't hear ET.
Oh, maybe you
weird.
muted him because I can hear him.
I don't see a control for that. He's not on my screen anymore at all.
That's kind of weird. But anyways, all right, well, I guess I'll talk about split timers. Yeah, so our group, our group is it is kind of funny how it's so different, how it's just a few of us that are just kind of racing around for fun. So it's a very different kind of setups. And so what I tended to do is to try to do things with more timers and split timers. And so we'll do like goofy things like we have a mode of racing that we call Punish the Leader. So we actually whoever's leading after a round has to do this extra gate. And it's because we're not keeping overall scores and whatnot, so it's just kind of a way to even things up if you have guys that are like faster and kind of tend to always winning and whatnot. And it can add a bit of strategy. You can kind of let someone else go first, and then they have to do the extra gate. Michael, can you mute, or can you ask him to mute?
I got you back now.
Oh, okay. Just why we can hear your keyboard when you're typing. You got one of those clacker keyboards.
Yeah.
All right, good. We're all good. And then and so when the leader's doing that gate, then I wanted to have like a call out and a notification. So that was a thing that I implemented, and for on the split timers, the cluster or secondary timers, and that's where you add an extra timer into the system. And so the usual functionality of that is you do it as a split time, and so you get the split time call out. And then this was adding another timer, and its purpose is just it does a beep and a call out when someone does that extra gate, and like we call it like the punish gate. And so yeah, so it did that as a thing. You can configure it. It's documented in there in the on the GitHub and whatnot. And then another recent one we worked on was we have on the course we're running. There's a pretty good straightaway on it. We're lucky we have we're able to kind of set up at an AMA field, and we have a course that's set up pretty much permanently, and so it's pretty large, and so there's a straightaway. So we thought, well, it'd be great if we knew what the speed was that people were going down that straightaway. And so now you can set that up. So you put a regular split timer at the start of it, and you put another split timer at the other part of it, and then it'll call out your speed. And it's like there's one of our guys who races with us who's all about speed, and so he just always wants to hit that as fast as he can, even if he misses the next gate and whatnot. So there's this strategy with that too, just fooling around. And yeah, so I've been playing around with that stuff.
That's very cool. I think we will see the use of that also more and more, especially now the timers get cheaper. I think in the last World Cup in Korea, they also did something like that with the speed. I'm not sure if they use RotorHazard, but they have had a speed measurement. And the extra punish gate option is very funny and cool. I've got a question for you. How do you all do it wired, or do you do connected over Wi-Fi?
So at our events, I will definitely put a wired connection from the timer out at the start gate to a router that I have dedicated for. I just got my router. It was something that someone was going to throw away, so it's not amazing, but it does provide me a wired connection, which I recommend if you're going to have a lot of people at an event, and those results really are critical for moving it forward. Because you have that reliability that is really hard to have with a Wi-Fi connection. Now the Pi can do Wi-Fi, and if you've only got 2, maybe 3 people that you're flying with, and you're flying relatively close to it, then it works great. But in my experience, all sorts of things just really have that performance go downhill quickly, whether that's really the distance between you and the timer to have a safe space for 5-inch quads all by itself. The fact that you've got the timer on the ground behind a small hill could do it. And more recently, some of the 2.4 protocols that frequency hop, like ELRS, have been known to mess with it a little bit more than some of the prior ones do. So we don't mess with all that during the events. We want to make sure the events run smooth, so we run wired. That being said, because it's a router that I have connected at the pit area, it does have Wi-Fi available, and I'll often connect to that router to do little things to the timer, with my phone that I wouldn't be able to. Maybe I've got somebody else who's working on the laptop console, or I just want to check something real quick. That it's often stable enough for that to work, where I can go in and just change a setting or check a result real quick through the Wi-Fi, because it's sitting in the pilot area, which has been great. And it's also been stable enough there to run my LED panel over that Wi-Fi connection, because there's enough of a delay in when that signal needs to get there that tends to work well.
And how do you do it with the split timers? Because I am in the same opinion with you over running a Riot network, especially for the main timer. So we always do it wired. I can show you in a bit, but we have a PoA switch, and we run a PoA core, a network cable to the timer also for the power. But I really want to have in future maybe like 4, 5, 6 split timers connected. But I'm not. I'm thinking about all the cables I have to bring, especially for a whoop event. It's doable, but for an outdoor event, you have to take along like hundreds of meters of internet cable. Is this just the way how it should be, or are there other options for that?
I mean, I've done a lot with doing it with Wi-Fi, and I definitely agree that you want, especially if you're running an event, you definitely want a solid wire connection, especially to the main timer. I mean, there's nothing that's going to touch that for reliability, but it is doable. But what you got to watch out for, one of the big things you got to watch out for, is that you can get all set up doing it with Wi-Fi and whatnot. It's all working, and then everybody turns their stuff on, and then it all goes to crap.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I've
all
been
that,
there
yeah, we probably
with
all been
Wi-Fi
there if we
camps,
fool
so
around
that
with
was,
it. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And so one of the basic problems is if you're on 2.4, if you're using that band on, like, you just don't use that band on Wi-Fi. That's the first step. Just even like turn that off, like even if you're doing Wi-Fi stuff, because all the transmitters that use 2.4 are going to clobber that as soon as they get turned on. Now then you go to the 5G band, and with that you can do it, but you really got to be on a frequency that the video transmitters aren't using. And so I usually go down to, like, if you like, there's a channel, most of the routers, at least in the US, I've seen, can do like a channel 40, which is down at 5200 megahertz. And that's pretty safely out of the video transmitters. And so if you do that and you make sure that you're down there around that band, I've had good luck with it.
Okay.
And the other big thing is, if you're using the Pi as your router, or even the Pi in general, is that the shielding boxes that we need, that you use to get good signal and good results, are going to shield the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And so you really need external Wi-Fi dongles.
External Wi-Fi dongle, yeah. Yep.
So I've had 4 timers going, all on Wi-Fi, but the key is to use a frequency like around 5200, and to have external USB Wi-Fi dongles on them, and just have those at least, a little bit up in the air. And I've gotten that to work 4 timers, outdoors and indoors. I started fooling around with it indoors too. So it's possible, but you do have to be aware and respect those caveats.
Yeah. I can quickly show maybe people find it interesting. A little setup how I run it. It's just a 4G network router. It's Teltonica. It's just for uploading the scores and the live stream during the race. This also gives out the IP addresses. And then we just use a PoE network switch with 4 PoE ports. We mainly only use one, but we can hook up multiple devices. So we run one cable from the router to the splitter, and the splitter will forward 1 over PoE to the lap timer. And on the lap timer, we have a dongle. It's a really cheap one, like $10 on Amazon or maybe on AliExpress, which has a built-in regulator, so it puts it back to 12 volt, and that works perfectly. So it's not integrated because all the designs are pretty stacked already. There are Pi heads you can use to directly use PoE over the network port. But with the existing designs, it's just hard to get it into one box. And it's really recommended because we only have to run one network cable. And yeah, we run like I think like 8 events like this without any downtime or anything.
Yeah, we use a passive PoE as well, which has a dongle that's really similar to what you just showed. I mean, you do have to know the difference if there's active and passive PoE. Yeah. Whereas active is, a really structured standard, and you get anything that's active PoE rated, and it's all going to work together, and it'll work really well, and that's great. But it's also a lot more expensive. And it only runs at the 48 volt active standard. Yeah. Whereas passive, you can get dongles like you just showed there for $5-10, and but whatever power you put in is what comes out the other side, unless you're getting something and you're getting something with a regulator or something like that.
I have to say,
so we use a passive setup, and I put 12 volt in one side, and that's enough to run the timer on the other over, a pretty decent length of Ethernet cable, and that reduces the amount of cables that we need, and that's great. But it is something that you need to be aware of, because you're not going to be able to put active on one side and passive on the other.
Yes, indeed. I run passive before I had the PoE switch. The thing I noticed that when you use a longer cable, you really have to put up the voltage because the cables, the Ethernet cables, can bear a lot of amps. So to get enough power at the end where your lap timer is, you really need to put up the voltage, and at the end use a regulator to put it down again. But for shorter distances, the shorter the distance, the easier that gets.
Yeah, if you're running indoors, then it just simplifies the wiring a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter as much.
Cool. Then I think.
Do we want to look quick at a couple of questions from YouTube?
I got the first one here from Christian Vloed. I put it in the stream so people can see it also. So now an overlay that stays longer on the last heat to show the results of that heat. At least keep heat statistics until the new staging sequence kicks in. And I know what Christian means because he is in the DDR team and he asked me a few times about this already. And the question is, yes, that should be possible by an plugin to add an overlay with the last. What he wants is to show a screen after the race has finished with the results from the last race.
Well, the existing stream overlays will do that until the new staging does kick in. The system will take the last race that you ran, it stores a copy of that and will display that to the stream overlays until you start the next one. And the same thing on on the spectate the current race page. If you're connected to the timer directly, that will do the same thing and actually show both of those. What the last race was and what the next one is that's currently being set up at the same time until that next race kicks off, and then it'll clean out the old one and start the new one.
So there is already there.
Yes, that is already there. There is one issue I'm aware of that I need to look into, and that is if you go and you marshal that race, it doesn't update that. So that's still something that it needs to do. But if you got a clean race and then you're just getting the next one ready, that is something the timer can already do.
Great. Now we just have to look better.
Do you want to hit this question about battery management?
Yes, from Magnus.
He's saying, asking about a plugin for battery management in the nuclear version. So in general, there's two ways on these boards right now that it's theoretically possible to see the battery voltage. And for a long time, there's been support for putting a module on the I2C bus, basically wiring to the board, called an INA 219, I believe it is, and that's a module that gives you voltage and amps. And so that's been in there and supported as far as displaying it for a long time. If it shows up on the status screen section on the GUI, that's built. I know it's there's a spot for it built into the S32B pill board. I'm not sure if the Nuclear Hazard supports that or not. I'd have to look that up.
I don't know either.
I believe that they did build support for the onboard voltage sensor in the STM32.
Well, so that's a different thing that I was getting to.
Okay.
So that's the old way, and you have to add the extra component, which can be a few bucks. That INA 219, and you could even do that with the old Delta version. You just have to put it in with wires. There's actually a place in the docs that shows an example of doing that. So then when we get to these STM32 chips, what we did in our original design for the S32B pill is we put in a voltage divider and basically support for that, kind of like what you get on a flight controller, where Beta Flight will do that. But the software support has never been implemented, and it's just one of those things that's never rised up on a priority because we have the other way of doing it. And so it's on the to-do list. It'd be good. And then beyond that, there's the idea of when you're getting these measurements, then of doing something with them. And I think somebody just did a plugin recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Smith put together a plugin so that it's you can configure an alert for your sensors. So this is one that I've run myself because we, especially in our indoor events, we're running off of mains voltage, so I'm not worried about power. But that's been on the to-do list for a long time, and now it exists as a plugin, which is excellent.
At least doing it with an INA 219 module.
So the plugin is just for any sensor. So once we have the setup done, the software written for the STM32, that sensor alert plugin is going to work with it straight away. But that link still has to happen before the sensor alert plugin can see and read that information.
I think that would need some node code update, which we haven't done a node code update for a while because it's been very stable. But,
that's one of the things we don't want to mess with a lot if it's working well, because you don't want to end up in a situation where timers that a lot of people are running all over the world at this point that aren't reliable. And we know that the node code we're running right now is rock solid. It's been run in thousands of races, and everyone knows exactly what they're going to get out of it. And when you mess with that, it's possible to introduce some reliability issues in there, which we really, really want to avoid. So we're happy to develop features out, but it can be done. It's just an area that we really want to be careful when we're working within.
And then we had one more question I see in the YouTube. Is it possible to see your position during a race in your OSD with ELRS bind phrase?
I believe it's possible now.
Yes.
Or it works with bind phrase or with your pilot tag?
Yep, it depends on how you have it set up. You need to, the way that Grubby's plugin does it is you have to have the plugin needs to know what your bind phrase is. The setup that he has for the pilot tag is that if you set up your bind phrase as your pilot handle, then you don't have to re-input that into a separate field. It will just pick that up automatically. But that's if you have set up your bind phrase to match your handle already. So it does need to know your bind phrase to be able to send data to ELRS. But yes, whether you're using the Clearview or the Fusion or Grubby's ELRS, I believe the other ELRS, they will all display the position as well. Yeah,
but of course it depends on the VRX you're using. So HD0 supports it right now using ELRS. The TBS Fusion supports it over the Crossfire. It's like the same protocol,
it's TBS. TBS is over the Fusion's Wi-Fi, so you don't need to be running Crossfire.
Yeah, it's over Wi-Fi. Yeah, but it's not. That doesn't really have anything to do with ELRS. It's just using Wi-Fi.
Correct.
And then
in HD0, it's only the goggle that supports the connection between ELRS to the OSD. That hasn't been ported to any of the other receivers that I'm aware of yet.
When it's stable and when it's more out and used, they will eventually push it forward to the modules as well. I'm not sure for the first module, but for the 4 SMA port module, I've heard from Call, they will implement it when it's ready and mature enough.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I had 3 questions from the forum. The first one from Paul. there are a lot of RX 5808 models on the market, cheap ones like $5 or $6 on Ali. Are they good, or should I choose the more expensive like 12 to 15 bucks? Is there any difference? Which RX 5808 do you recommend to use?
The old RX 5808 schmozzle. I guess you
I
asked
believe they're
the
all the
question.
same, right?
Yeah, you asked the question, do you feel lucky?
Yeah, do you feel lucky? Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems to be a crapshoot, no matter where you get them from.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no real difference whether you're able to find them for $5 or $6 or 12 to 15. It's still a lottery as to what you're going to get when you do that. The nice thing about RotorHazard is the quality of video reception in the modules matters a lot less. I know for a fact that one of the manufacturers that built goggle modules just buys a bunch of these things and throws a bunch of them away because they don't meet their sensitivity standards. But that's not a concern that I've seen any users of RotorHazard have, because we actually want smaller sensitivities. They make things work better. So get them as cheap as you can is the first answer to that. Will they have the
and get extra ones?
Yeah, get extras. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because the quality control isn't always there. So it's not a lot of these that get thrown out, but some of them do go bad and need replaced. And it's better to have those on hand if you're paying $5 or $6 for one, for sure.
Yeah. So
as to whether or not they're going to need modified so that they can change the channels, this is also a lottery. There's information that's still posted on the Delta 5 repo about certain date codes that'll work. That's wrong. That's changed since then. It really, you have no idea what you're going to get until you buy them and see what shows up.
But if you have a soldering iron with a nice thin tip and magnifying glass, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing, but if you but it's definitely doable if you've done other soldering. You just want to make sure you don't wipe out something else on the board.
Yeah, it's just taking something that's on there and getting rid of it. So it's not like you have to add a component or anything like that. It's I've done it a few times and it's not too bad, but it's a little bit more advanced than what you need for building a quad, I guess. Yeah.
So the short answer is no, it doesn't matter. You should get the cheap ones, but you always lucky or unlucky if you have the SPI mod.
Yep.
And once in a while, you will get a bad module. You'll get one that just doesn't react well. And like a good test to do when you're first building these is to put all the modules. Like if you have 4A, put all the nodes on the same channel and run a transmitter, and then compare. And when you see one that's just different from the rest, then you know something's up with that module. And it's good with the newer designs. You can you're not soldering these right on the main board anymore with the newer designs, which is good.
But basically, if you're getting laps in, then you're pretty. It's pretty well that you've got a module that works well.
Yeah,
the only thing that I would watch for.
Right, if it's a little different, don't freak out, right?
Right, exactly. I've had modules that read high and modules that read low, and it's not a problem as long as you're able to calibrate so the laps come in.
And sometimes
if you are getting one that goes up and it saturates for a long time, that might be worth replacing, or at least trying it on different channels first. Because as long as it sits at that maximum level where it's plateaued, you're getting less accuracy there. I've only seen this a couple of times, but that's one way one indicator you might want to change the module up.
Yeah.
And some modules will do better on higher frequencies. Some will do better on lower. Sometimes you'll see that.
Yeah.
You can even swap them around sometimes if you know you're going to use low frequencies in one place or something like that. Or if you have extra channels and one looks bad, you can swap that to a channel you don't use very often or stuff like that. Extra node positions.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Then we go to the next one from Ish. It's not a question, but a comment. There should be a comprehensive video showcasing its features and best practices because a solid video does not exist. Now, I think you already did some showcasing in the beginning.
That is true, and I don't have a great setup myself to be able to produce those. But also, this is a great area for the community to get involved. There are a lot of people out there with really good setups with screen recording and microphones that are higher quality than anything I have available. Much more opportunities to not have background noise than what I can do. And if the community does want to engage in that way, I would be happy to work with somebody on making sure that we're saying things efficiently and accurately as we go through. But it also leaves my time to extending features and development that a lot of people, they were looking for areas to contribute but aren't developers. This is a great thing to be able to do that, which would really help the project.
Yeah, totally agree about that. Yeah. Next one from Flip. Can I convert my older style Arduino Raspberry Pi 3B plus 8-node RotorHazard timer to the new Blue Pill style? If so, what's needed? Would it be worth it?
So I think we already covered whether or not it would be worth it at the beginning, but if that's something you want to do, yeah, I think Eric can cover that.
I mean, personally, what I would tend to say, unless you're really having trouble getting another Raspberry Pi, I would build a new timer,
yeah,
and just build it up, and then you get to have two timers. You can test them against each other. You can use one as a split timer. So, I mean, I would say if you can swing it at all, if you can manage it, I would say just build another one. More the merrier.
Yeah, because you're really replacing almost all of the components at that point, except for the Pi.
Yeah, and also because on the older, the other thing is on the older the Delta 5 style Arduino boards, the modules are soldered onto there. So even if you're trying to reuse the modules, you'd have to unsolder them, and you're probably going to kill half of them trying to do that. So I would just build another one personally, but I know it's easy for me to say.
and based on performance, would it be worth it? Like the few $100 it will cost just for performance?
I mean, there's no different in timing accuracy. So what you would be gaining are outside of that, and maybe you can add sensors a little bit more easily to the new board, for example, or the RTC that keeps your Pi time going is much easier to add to the new board, that kind of thing. But really, yeah, if your primary concern is timing accuracy, or whether or not you can run a longer event for with more pilots and have it stay responsive, that's all on the Pi side anyway. So
yeah, then you only have to
really change that.
Yeah. I think that were the questions for now.
Great.
Is there anything else? What is now? What are you working to? What's on the agenda?
Well, fairly soon we're going to drop a 0.1 version of RotorHazard V4. There's a couple of minor bugs that we want to adjust, and honestly, the event setup guide is just way out of date and needs to be replaced. A few documentation things to make it easier to set up, and then beyond that, we're definitely looking at expanding the API to let plugin developers do more things. There's a branch already underway that allows someone who wants to connect a simulator to a RotorHazard front end, and this could allow people to fly the same race both in a simulator and live at the same time, which would be really interesting. I'm thinking about some of my exhibition events I've held at times where I could have somebody, from the spectators join in and race along with the pilots.
Oh, cool.
On a simulator at the same time if this got built out, which would be really neat. And I think that the developer on that wants to, use it as a way to, just connect the things that they've been doing for event management with their off-season simulator races as well. So that's a pretty interesting thing that will be coming down the road, I hope.
And is it like a general API that all simulator developers can hook into, or is it a collaboration with a particular simulator?
This really, we're just going to be extending the existing API so that developers can also put laps in there manually instead of having that come through the other detection systems like the RX 5808s and so forth. That's the only piece that was missing for this developer to move forward.
And can you spoil what simulator this is, or is it too soon?
Yeah, I think that's all right. It's the developer of Flow State.
Flow State.
Working on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's I believe Sky FPV's simulator that he's been working on for a long time, and he's a big with Street League, and they've been long RotorHazard users. They had a branch going to add a bunch of features to that on RotorHazard 3 in different ways that they used the rankings and pilot seating and that sort of thing. And I think everything that they were building that custom branch for is now something that you can plug in for going forward.
Yeah, great.
Very cool. I like the idea of kind of having it on the simulator and in real life, kind of blurring the virtual in the real world.
Yeah, I can imagine doing it myself too. You always have some people that are ill that cannot attend or too far away, or at a family meeting or something, and when they're able to hook up the sim and join the race, just as fun factor, and showing their stats also in the list, but maybe with a sign that it's sim based. Yeah, can open some doors.
And I've been playing around recently, as we were talking about, with split timers and speed timers, reading out speeds. Now that we've moved around here, things have gotten cold around here. We've moved to indoors, and we do it in a gym. And we have, as part of the indoor course, we do this high pass from that's above the backboards. It's a basketball court. And so we have this high pass. And so I've been playing around with trying to get speed readings for the high pass and trying to figure out if they're really accurate or not. So I've been messing around with that. And we've been playing around with shielding, trying to get good signals from that, because there's a lot of reflections and whatnot. But yeah, the RotorHazard angle of that is just in the cluster timing and just trying to make sure that all those timings are really accurate. So I've been messing around with that recently.
Cool.
Yeah, we talked about the global qualifier. That's something that could easily make it into another version soon. There will be some modifications to RotorHazard itself, although much of that's going to be in the toolkit plugin. So that's something I'm looking forward to, and I hope MultiUP continues to work with us to make that reality. But a number of the things that we would be looking at for features. I've just been looking at some of the feature requests in the GitHub, and there's been a few of them I've been able to just build one-off plugins to to provide that. Somebody was looking for a system to if nobody had registered a lap in a certain amount of time, then it would stop the race and start a new one, so that they could just run practices with it without touching the timer. And so I was looking at that a week or so ago, and was like, this is something a plugin can do, and now it exists. So I'll be looking at those sort of potential enhancements that are in there and knocking those out as I go along too. And that's been fun to do.
I also know, and maybe we can talk shortly about it, is some people were asking for plugin, a website or page, or maybe even a integration within RotorHazard, within the server itself, to find new plugins and to update them. Do you have any idea already on that?
I can't say, timelines or anything like that, except that I know for a fact that it's a need, and that, it will definitely be something we look into going forward. We really prioritized making the system exist and getting it out into people's hands as quickly as we could as soon as it was stable. And those support systems around that, making sure people can find them and and install and manage that. Those will be coming, but there just hasn't been time to develop that yet. Definitely going to happen.
Yeah. Great.
I also think it would be great for you, Jesse, to talk a little bit before we wrap up here about FPV Scores, because that's one of the things I've been really excited about, and our group has already started using. I'm really excited about, especially the way that you've been handling some of the systems that RotorHazard uses that the others don't, and getting that out in users' hands.
Yeah. Well, I have to start with the story like a little bit more than a year ago. When I was running races, I noticed that everybody came to a race director asking, "What was my time? What is my heat? What channel am I on?" While you're focusing, especially on some parts when you really have to dive into the times, you really cannot have that in your bag. And also the fact that everybody who joins the RotorHazard server on their mobile or on the local network to check their times, it really got a lot of CPU load on the RotorHazard. And during the race, that sometimes resulted in just flat signal lines. So it was very hard to manage races with 32 pilots when they're all are jamming the server for their stats. So I started building something for Dutch drone racing in particular. It was like a mobile phone app. And it was just a bit too much work, and I had too less time. But there was a beginning of sharing the scores within this drone racing. But then I thought it is so much time, and why should we keep it to ourselves? So I just threw the project in the bin, and I was thinking about something open for all race organizations without a particular branding of one. So it could be used for free by everyone. And Michael has also had a big part in that. Because when you have a platform like that, and you have the race community is so big, and we have big organizations, we have small groups, and everything in between, and we want everybody to be able to use such a platform free of costs. So race directors have an easier time running their races, pilots have an easier time when they want to check what heat they're on, when it's their time, and what their past round lap times were. So we created a website, FPVScores.com, and a plugin for the RotorHazard system that lets you sign up as a pilot or as a race organization. And as a race organization, you can sign up for an event, put that event code in your RotorHazard lap timer, and then upload the scores during the race as much as you like, and also automatically in the coming version after each save it gets updated. And for now it's just a very basic version, but there are some updates coming, like the ranking, the proper ranking from the new RotorHazard race formats, and also with plugins you can create new race formats that were not existing or are still not existing, and they will work also in the new version. it will just show the ranking details, the points, everything that the developer has put into the race format itself. And yeah, it's just the beginning right now. The coming things we're working on is the live results, a specific result page for the pilot itself, so they have their own times and can match their can see how much faster they are this round in comparison to their previous round. So really a personalized pilot result page, also pilot profiling, and organization listings. So every organization will have their own web page with all their races that are already done and all the races that are coming, they're planned on the website. And that's the first thing I'm working on now. And when that's finished, we maybe also will integrate event registration on the platform. So that could make it easier for race organizations, but it will always be optional. And one thing more that's kind of interesting is when you're a pilot on the system, you get your own QR. I can show it I will show it on my phone really quick. And the race organization can scan your QR code when you attended the race. Mine looks like this. So it's just your name, your avatar, a QR code, and your Express LRS, bind phrase, or your Fusion MAC address. And as a race director, you can go on your Android phone or on your laptop with a QR code scanner. Pilot can check in with their QR code and all their information, like the fast phrase, bind phrase, Fusion MAC address, and name, country, and their customized of their personal FPV Scores code are all registered within the RotorHazard pilot option. So when a pilot arrives at the event, you can just scan their code, mark it as checked. Also, if you already did the safety checks, we always have to perform safety checks with our races. And that will also make an event go more smoothly at the beginning. I think that sums it up a bit.
Good stuff. Do we want to hit a couple more questions on the YouTube chat?
There are some more. I had to scroll.
Ricky says, a quick question. I'm working on the single node USB. The wiki doesn't have any resistors on D10, D11, D13. Should I add them? On that setup, you definitely don't need it for that. Everything's running. So the purpose of the resistors was that on the other designs, we run the RX 5808 modules at 3.3 volts to get less heating, and they seem to work fine that way. You know, and the other side of the system is sometimes 5 volts, and so the resistor kind of levels that out. But even then, it's from what I've seen, it works okay either way. But especially on the USB node, everything's running at 5 volts, and it's fine without the resistors.
The other thing with the USB is that you've only got one module communicating with the with the Arduino there, and especially on the multi-module setups, you've got communication that should only be picked up by one, so that helps with eliminating some of that cross-channel communication that we don't want.
And he also says if you had a beeper, what pin would it go to? The beeper really is not supported for Arduino in general, and so it's not a thing that's really supported for this kind of node. And then Magnus is asking, with all the plugins, will all the plugins be in the new version 4 going forward, or does all the plugins need to be loaded in separately?
So the plugin system is intentional that these are separate and loaded in individually, because that way you can customize your timer with the features that you use. We don't have to dump a ton of stuff into the core system. We can actually start reducing some of the features that the core system has so that it runs faster and more efficiently. And then you will add only the items that you want your system to have. So if you don't run multi-GP, there's no reason for you to include that multi-GP plugin. If you want, a race format or a ranking system that, is unique to yours, you can add that with us not having to put that in and make everybody else have to sort through more features and options to find what they need. So everybody gets a system that works as efficiently as it can for their individual setup. So no, the plan won't be to include all the plugins and bundle them and release them. But this works better for everyone. And when we are able to build a plugin management system, it's not going to be that difficult for you to go find it and pull it in. And hopefully we'll be able to do it in a way that also just carries what you have installed from one system to the next as you upgrade going forward too. So it's not even like you're going to have to remember which ones you had and go find them and bring them each time you upgrade.
Great. I'm thinking, should I still show a little bit of event sign up on the FPV Scores, or maybe it's clear enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if users go and just check out a couple of races, they'll be able to really see pretty quickly what it is that you're doing with it. I love that I can basically push one button at the end of my event to deploy all my results up there, and then my pilots have those separated in these are the classes and these are the times and each of the individual rounds and all of that, and it's all up there published for them to go visit whenever they want, which of course they can't once I've shut the timer down and taken it home. So it's fantastic. And once you get the ranking on there, it's going to be just a game changer for being able to have them go and check out that information that that we collect during the race. I mean, it's going to be on par with what you can get from the commercial systems and their live websites as well, which is just fantastic.
That's also a good point. We use it for live during the races, but it's of course also very usable if you're not running internet or anything. Just after the race, when you're at home, connect your timer to the network, press upload, and the racers can check their times, their scores of every lap they made when they're at home too.
And that's exactly what we do, because we race in a lot of places that don't have active internet connections. So we put the race together before we go out to the field. We go out there, we race, we have a good time, we close up, we go home, and then I can just basically push the upload button to FPV Scores and send them a link, and that's it.
Perfect. Yeah. We also what we see is also groups in the Netherlands. They already prepare their timer before the race or training evening. They already set the pilots up, the heats up, and then they already upload it once to FPV Scores, and then they already send the link out to all pilots attending. Look at here you can see your channel, and here you can see your heat you're in.
That's great. Yeah, we have plenty of people who show up that didn't necessarily tell us beforehand, so we change a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that makes it hard. Yeah, we also always have to work with signups, and it makes it easier because everybody already has their channel ready when they're attending at the location.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
ET, are there any more things you want to cover?
No, I think I'm good. I think it's been a great session.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to say absolutely, huge shout out and thank you to the community, the plugin developers. You're really making this, what it is. And if people are looking for more help, there's the Facebook group is pretty active. There's like 1,100 members on there. There's 200 or 300 on the Discord server is very active. I've seen a lot of support happening there. Developers discussing how they're going to put plugins together, that sort of thing, and that's a great resource as well. And then, of course, for issues and feature requests, the GitHub is a great way for us to track those, especially if there's, something that looks like a problem. It doesn't, those kinds of things can get lost on Facebook or Discord, but if they're in the issue tracker in GitHub, then we can refer back to them. We can have conversations with people about specific issues, and that's a really great way for those things to get addressed and make sure that they get into the releases that they need to be.
I will make sure to put the Facebook link, the Discord link, and the GitHub link in the video description. After the video, after we go out, it will be available as video, so everybody can watch it whenever they like. So that will
Awesome.
make
Thank
it
you.
a bit easier. Yeah, thank you for being here and for doing all the explanation and all the work, of course, on the RotorHazard system. Me as race organization, I'm really glad how everything is working, and even more glad how it's improving every race we run it. Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you all for that, both of you and all the plugin developers.
It's definitely a labor of love.
Thanks again. I think we're closing down now.
Sounds good.
Yes. Have a nice day. I'm going to bed soon, so we're in another time state. I have to go to work tomorrow early. So
no problem.
Thanks a lot, and we'll speak to each other. Yeah, probably very soon, and maybe when we have some more questions. We can do this anytime again in the future if there are a lot of things to announce or things to ask or something to discuss with the community. Then you will hear from us again.
All right, great.
Great. Bye.
Thank you for hosting. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.